My fellow South Africans, as the President likes to start his addresses, we have got a problem that we're going to have to watch very, very closely. And that is that as the ANC's power wanes, as political contestation gets a little bit hotter, and we already know what the local government elections are looking like, some of those people stealing money from the state are going to see, we're into the second half, or there's only 10 minutes left to play, and therefore we've got to go. Try and score as many goals as possible, because if you are currently involved in illicit business in South Africa, which is a big part of our economy, we know that the state spends over R1 trillion a year. If you are somehow managing to make enough money so that you can buy those pointy shoes and those Bentleys, you better go for your badge now, because there's a chance that a new government comes in and everything changes, or they change the tender system, or something happens and your meal ticket is gone. And this leads us to this problem that's now reared its head, or this issue brought with the Madlanga Commission, and that is of political complicity and helping criminal syndicates. And that really, really does put whistleblowers in a very difficult position. Now, just the last couple of days, Sizwe Zibi, the head of Rise Mzansi, who also occupies quite an important position in Parliament called SCOPA, that's the Committee on Public Accounts. Basically, he's the watchdog of the parliamentary wallet. It says that he is being followed and people are taking pictures of him, and he has had to increase his security because he's concerned about his own security. And this is a problem. This is a problem because there is no doubt that somebody like Sizwe Zibi is doing a much better job than some of the dullards that used to run those positions. We think back to Themba Gordy, a very nice guy who was head of SCOPA, who did nothing. They watched state capture happen, did nothing. But now you've got somebody like Sizwe, who's been a guest on our show a few times, feisty character, comes out of a different thing. He's not a cadre, he's not a comrade, and he's quite prepared to hold people to account and certainly ventilate the problems that we have in balancing the numbers in South Africa. And suddenly his protection is an issue. We're going to have to do something about whistleblower protection, because this is going to become a bigger and bigger issue in South Africa. And that is to say, if we know that there's R1 billion a year being stolen from the Tembisa hospital, who, after Babita Deokaran is shot in her driveway, is going to be brave enough to stand up and say, I'll be the next whistleblower? If we want this to stop, and I say if, because only a portion of the country wants us to stop. Let's remember, the ANC, we know, is accused number one, to use the president's own words. MK is literally the state capture central. EFF, wherever they are in power, there's questions of corruption. So there's vested interests here that says perhaps not everybody wants whistleblowers to succeed. I think we have to do a lot better, which sort of makes the situation that happened this weekend even a little bit crazier. And what the situation I refer to is that as the weekend press covered the Mkhwanazi's testimony at the Madlanga Commission, there seems to be quite a concerted effort by some of the media houses to say the same thing, which is, where's the evidence? Remember Zuma's, what have I done kind of thing, right? As everything fell around, about around him. Why is the media doing this? They were saying, where's the evidence? Well, I watched much of that commission, and there were letters, there were transcripts of calls, there were WhatsApps, there were all sorts of things that were submitted as evidence. That's evidence. Surely you go and testify, you're under oath, you're part of the evidence. What evidence is it that the media is looking for? Do they want him to bring dead bodies in? I don't understand it. He has given them hard evidence, right? He can only ask the question as to why the political killings task team was closed down. He can only say, here's this letter that this person wrote on the issue. There's this letter, here's this chain of events. What is the media after? Now, quite confused because the same media was very prepared to accept oral evidence when it was the Zondo Commission. But now the oral evidence of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is not good enough for the media. Now, I want to know which one it is. We were happy to listen to Angelo Agrizzi at the Zondo Commission and believe him, and he's a crook. But a cop, we don't want to believe. So, I don't know, media, maybe you got to explain this one to me, because I heard a lot of evidence coming through. And, we need to get on top of this because South Africa is in the spotlight. We're nowhere in the spotlight because everybody has suddenly got a little bit more serious about the economy. As we speak, our Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Parks Tau, is in the USA trying to mend fences with the USA after we purposely burnt them down. He's trying to do a trade deal because he realized, oh hell, perhaps we should be doing business with the biggest economy in the world and the largest importer of South African products. I'm not talking about minerals, but products, certainly finished products. So, I think there's a realization that those that are in power are saying, this economy is in serious trouble and we need to do something about it. So what we have is Minister Tau in the US changing after telling the whole world to go to hell. Suddenly the ANC are there trying to negotiate a deal. Now, you will remember our magician of a trade envoy to the US, Complicity Jonas, who turned out to be a very compromised guy, former deputy minister of finance, head of MTN. He did, responsible for MTN in Iran. Then he has some very uncomplimentary things to say about Donald Trump. He says he's working on American trade deals, but he's not. He wouldn't say where he is. But anyway, the guy surfaced to say that the Eastern Cape needs a new town. His words were, we have not built a new town since 1994. Well, try ever, because I don't know whenever a town has been built by the ANC, because all the towns that we seem to have in South Africa are ones that were built before 1994 and not by the ANC. And this guy was the guy responsible for a massive number of job losses in the Eastern Cape. He was meant to be our trade envoy. He should have told the world if he wasn't up for the job. And since he got into that position, we've lost all of our trade deals with America of those vehicles that were being manufactured in the Eastern Cape and being sent to America largely under the AGOA deal. Now, this genius has finally realized we need jobs, we need money in the Eastern Cape, we need more towns. Where's the money going to come from for that? And it always astounds me, in what coma do these people suffer from? Like the guy knows, the Eastern Cape is probably the most corrupt province in this country, but yet it steadfastly votes for the ANC. We know the numbers of people that leave the Eastern Cape to go to the Western Cape because they can't get jobs in the Eastern Cape. Now, finally, the guy who was responsible for being our trade envoy to our biggest trading partner, who broke this deal, is saying we need to improve the economy in the Eastern Cape and maybe build a new town. It's kind of laughable, you've got to say. I just don't understand South African politicians, and I cover them every day. But we've brought you up to date. Let's keep an eye on those whistleblowers. And suddenly everybody's concerned about the economy. I wish they were concerned about the economy 5 years ago. But anyway, that's just me. Thank you so much for joining us on the Political Insider. We'll see you again soon.